What's up y'all? In this video, I'll be going over the functions of the sample editor in the Dirtywave M8. If you make music that uses a lot of samples, it's good to get familiar with the capabilities and functionality in the sample edit screen. There's a lot you can do, so let's check it out. To get to the sample editor, navigate to the instrument page and select a sampler instrument, then highlight the edit command and press edit. Most of what you'll do here will involve the waveform, so let's start by going over how to move around it. You can move in large steps by highlighting the start or end point values, then holding edit and pressing up or down. And pressing left or right while holding edit will bring up this microscope view where you can move the selection in small steps. And you can hold any of these buttons down to move continuously across the waveform. There are two other intervals you can adjust the selection at, both of which are dependent on the tempo of your project. If you hold Option and press the left or right buttons, the selection will move by the length of a single step of a phrase. And holding Option and pressing up or down will move the selection by the length of 4 steps of a phrase. And you can reset the value by holding Option and pressing Edit. And another way to edit the start and end points is to use the touchscreen. You have to hold the Edit button down, then you can move your finger horizontally across the screen. So the value on the left is the start point, and the value on the right is the end point. And as you move these around, the active selection will be highlighted in a different color than the parts outside the selection. And when you press play, the active selection will play from the start point until the point you've set is the end. Another playback mode you can enter is loop mode, which becomes active by default once you adjust the loop region start or end point. If you have this mode active, when you play back the sample and it gets to the loop endpoint, it will start playing again from the loop start point. So it's a good way to audition how your sample will loop if you plan on using any of the loop playback modes. You can adjust the loop start and end point in the same way I went over with the active selection, but one additional way you might find useful is copying and pasting the value of the start or end point. You can copy the value by holding Shift and then pressing Option, and you can paste it by holding Shift and pressing Edit. And the active selection parameter in the third row is for adding slices to the sample. You just have to highlight the start parameter on the right, and then make a change and the slice will automatically be added. You can only adjust the slice start point, so the end point would just be the start of the next slice. So once you've got a good point set, you have to move to the slice marker parameter on the left, then hold edit and press right to move to the next slice, then move back over to the start parameter and make another change. And you can play the selected slice by holding the play button. It'll stop playing once you get to the end of the slice. If you have a lot of slices in your sample, you can move through them by intervals of 16 by holding edit and pressing up or down. And you can add up to 128 slices to a sample. You can delete slices by selecting the slice marker number, then holding Option and pressing edit. Another way to add slices is to use the lazy chop shortcut. You highlight the slice marker parameter, then hold play and tap edit as the playhead moves through the sample. The shortcut also works if you have a slice selected. The slice will be added after the active slice. The final way to add slices is to use the slice process commands. To access these, highlight the process parameter, then hold edit and press right until you get to the commands that start with slice. The first is auto slice. This mode detects and sets slice markers at the transients, or the points in the sample where there's a sharp increase in volume, like a drum hit. And to activate the process, you just have to press edit. Next is the slice silence command. This is good for sample chains or rendered sounds that have gaps of silence between them. So for example, if you recorded a series of one-shots from another instrument or sampler, then use this command, this will place slice markers where the one-shots start. The rest of the slice commands will slice the sample into an evenly sized number of parts, and the number in the command determines how many slices there are. So slice 02 will slice the sample into 2 even parts, and slice 16 will slice it into 16 even parts. And you can do this all the way up to 127. The cool thing about using this command is that once you add the slice markers, you can change any of the points by following the same steps from earlier. So you can use this as a quick way to get some markers down, and then make further adjustments as needed. Let's talk about the rest of the process commands. These are audio editing utilities that allow you to make changes to the waveform, and like most things on the M8, you have a lot of control over what you can edit. The first process command is the crop command, which will delete any audio outside the active selection, so anything before the start point and after the end point gets removed. I'll be using the undo button a lot during this demo, so I'll mention it now. Pressing this lets you undo the most recent process command you've executed. You can only go back one action though, so keep that in mind if you plan on executing a series of actions. Next up is the delete command. Unlike crop, this command will remove the current selection from the sample. I find this works well for setting an endpoint, since you can move the start point towards the end of the sample and listen to what the ending will sound like, then delete what you don't need. The duplicate command copies your selection and pastes it before the start of the selection. And after you execute the command, you have the pasted selection highlighted, so you can potentially make further edits to the copied selection. The Normalize command will increase the level of the selected range's overall volume to its maximum without clipping, so it's handy for bringing the levels up on quiet samples. The silence command will mute your active selection. This could be good for cleaning up certain parts of the sample while still maintaining the sample's length. And then the reverse command will reverse the sample. The invert command will flip the polarity of your selection, which changes the positive peaks into negative valleys and vice versa. There are certain use cases for inverting a waveform, but I'm not super familiar with those. Next up are the fade in and fade out commands. The fade in command will take your selection and apply a volume envelope that starts the sound at 0 volume and then brings it up to its original level. And then the fade out command will start the sound at its original level and bring the volume to 0. And the fact that this works on the selection means that you have a lot of control over how long you want the sound to taper off or ramp up. The crossfade loop command detects where the active selection will loop and changes the waveform and automatically inputs loop start and end points around the detected area. It's good for one-shots if you want to turn them into longer sustaining samples. After that is the OTT effect, which allows you to add the over-the-top compression from the mixer page directly to the sample. This will use the time and color parameters you have set from the mixer page, but will apply the OTT as though the OTT parameter is set to 8.0. And you can run the OTT process command consecutively to really squish the waveform and raise the noise floor. The mono process commands let you convert stereo samples to mono in a few different ways. There's the mono mix command, which sums the L and R channels into a mono channel. And then the mono left and mono right commands will remove the opposite channel and make the sound mono. After that is the downsample command. This will cut the sample rate of the entire sample in half, so you can get some nice lo-fi sound by bringing 41 kHz samples down to 20 kHz. And if you run consecutive processes, you can keep cutting the sample rate down for a stronger lo-fi effect. And then there are the bitrate commands. If you're looking at a sample that's higher than 16-bit, then you'll see this 16-bit command. This lets you bring the bitrate down to 16-bit, which can improve performance of sample playback and increase the range of notes that you can pitch the sample up and down to. And if you have a 16-bit sample, then you'll see the 8-bit command instead, which can bring the bitrate down to 8-bit. This can also improve performance and playback, and it can give your sample a nice lo-fi sound. Once you're ready to save your changes, you can select the Save or Overwrite command and press Edit. The Save command will always ask you where you want to save the file, so it's more like a Save As function that you would use to keep the original file unchanged. Overwrite will save the sample in its current directory, so it's a quick way to save changes if you don't need to back up the sample. So that covers all the main functionality of the sample edit screen. The only thing I didn't cover are the sample record functions, which there are a lot of different ways to use, so I plan on covering that in a different video. And that does it for this one. Thanks for watching, see you next time.